hide this, and here we go. All right. So we start in chapter 7. And I do not have anything from the last chapter because we just took a test over that chapter. We need to know if you remembered or retained any of this other stuff. So this is ratios and proportions. So when you have ratios, 5x plus 8x plus 9x equals 110. You put an x behind all of these. You add them up, you get 22x equals 110. Divide by 22, x equals 5. And so if x equals 5, you put 5 times this, 5 times this, 5 times this. 5 times 5 is 25. 8 times 5 is 40. 9 times 5 is 45. Okay? All right. E corresponds with H. So it's E to H, F to I, G to J. Okay? Those three. And then HI is EF. HJ is EG. And then IJ is FG. And you don't even have to look at the picture. You can just match them up with these letters here. Okay? You can just use the order of the letters up there to match everything up. All right. Side lengths. We know this is a 9 to 12 ratio. If we want to find x, we put x over its corresponding part, 22. We cross multiply. 12x equals 9 times 22, which is 8. Carry the 1, which is 198. Divide by 12. X equals, I don't know right off the top of my head. Somebody help me out. Something 0.5, I bet. It's like 16.5. Thank you. Y. Now, Y is a pretty easy one. So it's 9 over 12 equals Y over 24. So if we cross multiply and solve, 12y equals 9 times 24, which is like 216. And divide by 12, x or y equals 18. And z goes to 22. Well, that's the same as x, so z would be the same as x. Notice how we have side angle side here, side angle side here. The angles are congruent, the sides are proportional. 6 to 15 would be proportional to 8 and 20. So if they're proportional, then it's side angle side. Okay, this is the baby mama papa one. So draw out your baby, your mama, and your papa triangles. For baby, the short side is 8, the medium side is x. For mama, the short side is x. The medium side of baby is always the short side of mama. Okay? So, short side is x, medium side is 9, hypotenuse is y. Papa, we don't know the short side. The medium side is y, the hypotenuse is 17. Okay, so to figure out x, there's an 8 here, you go down to x. There's an x here, you go down to 9. So 8 over x equals x over 9. Cross multiply it. X squared equals 72, take the square root. X equals square root of 36, square root of 2, which is 6 square root of 2. Okay? For y, here's a y, here's a 9. Y over 9, 17 over y. So y over 9 equals 17 over y. So if we cross multiply, y squared equals 3, give me the 6, 153. Take the square root of that. The square root of 153 is the square root of 9, square root of 17, or 3 square root of 17. All right. This one, this over this equals this over this. So 12 over 21 equals 6 over x. So if you cross multiply, 12x equals 126 divided by 12 divided by 12. x equals 10.5. Here, this over this equals this over this. X over 18 equals 3 over 9. Cross multiply. 9x equals 54 divided by 9. X equals 6. Okay, so the first 7 problems were from chapter 7. Then problem 8, we start with the Pythagorean theorem, and we're going to get into trig by the end of these. So, Pythagorean theorem, c squared equals a squared plus b squared. So, x squared equals 8 squared plus 15 squared. X squared equals 64 plus 225. Okay, x squared equals 289. So if we take the square root of those, it equals 17. What type of triangle is this? Well, you take your biggest side and compare it to your other two sides, and you square each of them. So 12 squared is 144. Compare it to 64 plus 100. Well, 144 is less than 64 plus 100. So if it's less than, it's acute. Less than's acute, equal to is right, greater than is obtuse when you set up with C on the left side. Okay, 45, 45, 90, the drawing's on the front of the wall in front of Dodge. Okay, and then 45, 45, 90, the two sides are the same, and you multiply by the square root of 2 to get to the hypotenuse. So it's 13 square root of 2. You just multiply by the square root of 2. Here's a 45, 45, 90, so the two sides are the same, and you multiply by the square root of 2 to get to the hypotenuse, so you divide by the square root of 2 to get to the side. So it's 8 divided by the square root of 2. Can't leave square root of 2 on the bottom, so you multiply top and bottom by square root of 2. So it's 8 square root of 2 over 2, or 4 square root of 2. Got to simplify it all the way down to 4 square root of 2. Okay. 2. Where does 2 go? Well, 2 is the hypotenuse of a 30, 60, 90. So you divide by 2 to get to the short side, which is 1. And then you multiply it by the square root of 3 to get 1 square root of 3. Okay? So x is 1, y is square root of 3. All right. Ratios. So, ka, toa. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. Okay? So the sine of A is opposite over the hypotenuse, 33 over 65. Cosine is the adjacent over hypotenuse, adjacent over hypotenuse, 56 over 65. Tangent is opposite over adjacent, 33 over 56. Okay, to find B, where's B compared to 41? Opposite, adjacent, or hypotenuse? Adjacent. So we have adjacent, we have hypotenuse, we must have cosine. Cosine of my angle, 41, equals my adjacent side over the hypotenuse. So you multiply by 180. Somebody, calculator, please. 180 times the cosine of 41. I can't do that in my head. 180 times the cosine of 41. Should be like 130 or something like that, maybe. 136. Round to the nearest whole number. Okay? All right. To find the angle, we have opposite, we have hypotenuse, so that would be sine, because it's opposite hypotenuse. So sine of my angle x equals 15 over 28. Okay? So to get x alone, we move the sign to the other side, so it becomes the inverse sine. So on your calculator, you push second sine of 15 over 28. If you do that, what do we get? How many degrees is my angle? Inverse sine of 15 over 28. 32 degrees. Okay, here the angle of depression is 49, but we don't have any numbers over here. This 49-degree angle of depression matches this angle of elevation, which is 49. So now we have numbers involved. So 49, we have opposite adjacent. Opposite adjacent is tangent. So the tangent of my 49-degree angle is 750 over d. So if you multiply both sides by d equals 750 divided by the tangent of 49. Okay? So you take 750 divided by the tangent of 49. $652. Okay, now we get to the slightly more difficult ones, the law of sines, the law of cosines. Okay, if this is 67 and this is 58, okay, that means this is 55 because there's 180 degrees in a triangle. So the law of sines deals with opposites. So I say the sine of my angle 55 over its opposite side 13 equals, if I want to find b, then I take the sine of the angle opposite of it, sine of 58 over b. So then if you cross multiply, you take 13 times the sine of 58 divided by the sine of 55. This times this divided by this. So what does b equal? 12 point something. Oh yeah, 13 point something because it's got to be bigger because it's opposite the, so 13.5. All right, and then for C, that's opposite the 67, so it'll even be bigger yet. The sine of 55 over 13 equals the sine of 67 over C. So if you cross multiply 13 times the sine of 67 divided by the sine of 55. 14.6. Okay. All right. Here, when we don't know any angles, we need the law of cosines, which is on the board. Okay. So at the top of the board, you see a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cosine of a. Okay. So to find a is here, 5, b is here, 4, c is here, 6. So a squared, 5 squared equals 4 squared plus 6 squared minus 2 times 4 times 6 cosine of a. Okay? So if we want to get a alone, we take 5 squared minus 4 squared minus 6 squared, and we divide it by what's in front of a because we're multiplying by it, so we have to divide by it. Negative 2 times 4 times 6. You do all that on your calculator. That's what the cosine of a equals, so you get a decimal that's equal to the cosine of a. So it's 5 squared minus 4 squared minus 6 squared divided by negative 2 times 4 times 6, which gives you 0.5625. And then you go inverse cosine of the answer, and it's 55.77 or 56 degrees. Okay. Oh, round to one decimal place, so 55.7 or 55.8 actually. Okay. And then to find B, angle B, do the same basic type thing. So you take 4 squared minus 5 squared minus 6 squared, all divided by negative 2 times 5 times 6, the two numbers you subtract by, and you go, that's what the cosine of B is. So it's 4 squared minus 5 squared minus 6 squared divided by negative 2 times 5 times 6. And you take the inverse cosine of the answer. You get 41.4. So these add up to 97.2. So this would be 82.8 for C. Okay, so 18 is probably the toughest question on there. 19, you have to move this. Okay, you got to move this 4 and 3. So the right 4 up 3. So the black goes to the blue, to the right 4 up 3, which is choice C. Here you got to count how far you move. You go back 1 and up 2. Back 1 and up 2 is negative 1, positive 2. Here, these line up. So it probably is A. You see how B does not line up? These don't line up, so it's not B. These don't line up, it's not C. And the letters don't line up. The points line up, but the letters don't line up. So A is the only one where the letters line up. J to J prime, A to A prime, R to R prime. The letters line up, but, and yeah, when the letters line up and the points line up, it's that one. Okay, notice how this one, the biggest arrow is pointing down, basically. The biggest part of the kite is pointing down, and it's in quadrant 4. So if you rotate it 90 degrees, the biggest point should be over here in quadrant 1 somewhere. Okay? If the biggest arrow is in quadrant 1, there we are. Okay? Rotation. There are 9 letters here. So you take 360 degrees divided by 9 letters. Each letter represents 40 degrees. So if you're going from C to H, there's 40 degrees here, 40 degrees here, 40 degrees here, 40 degrees here. So that's 160 degree rotation. For this one, you start with this one and go to this one. You start on the right-hand one and you go to the left. So it says to translate it down 1, down 1, down 1, down 1. And then we're going to reflect it across the line x equals 0. X equals 0 is here, here, and here. So which one does that match? Well, it matches choice B. It's a lot like C. So when you have your test, zoom in on them. Okay. For 25, which ones are congruent? Well, we know this is not congruent. So which ones are congruent? Well, TQX and CYM. What type of transformation is this? A rotation, a reflection, or a translation? It's a reflection across the line right here. That's just reflected across. A dilation. So it's new to old. Blue is new. New to old is 9 over 6, which is 3 over 2. So if it's the new is bigger, it's an enlargement. If the new is smaller, it's a reduction. Magnifying glass. Okay, you're looking at an ant under a magnifying glass. Okay, the ant is 9 times the actual size. So if you look at it, 9 times the size of the actual size, and you know the actual size is 3.6. What's the real length of it? Whoa. The image is 9 times. Oh, the actual. Okay. The image is 9, and this image is 3.6 centimeters. We want to know the actual length. Okay. So if we cross multiply, 9x equals 3.6 divided by 9. x equals 0.4. All right. Again, proportions. This over this equals this over this. 40 over 200 equals 125 over D. Since they're similar triangles, we can use proportions. So we use a combination of transformations, rigid motions, and dilations to do this. So if we cross multiply, okay, and do the math, D winds up to be 625. All right, so that's it for that chapter, for the transformations chapters. Now we're to areas. Area is base times height. 13 times 5 is, 5, carry the 1, 65. How do we do the area of this? What do? Make it into two shapes, a rectangle and triangle. The area of the rectangle is 90 times 110. The area of the triangle is, if this is 110 and 40, we get 70 by 120. Times 1/2. Because it's 1/2 the base times the height, because it's a triangle. All right, so this is 9,900. This is 4,200. If we add them together, it's 14,100. All right, area of a trapezoid is 1/2 the height times the sum of the two bases. So area equals 1/2 of 10 times 11 plus 15, which is 5 times 26, which is 130. Area of this is 1/2 of this diagonal, which is 24 plus 24 or 48, times this diagonal, 18 times 8, 18 plus 18 is 36. So I don't know what that is off the top of my head. 1/2 of 48 times 36. 864. All right. For a kite, same formula. Area is 1/2 of one diagonal, 9, times the other diagonal, 8, which is 36. Area of this one is 1/2 of 28, 28, 28, 28. Take the perimeter. So it's 1/2 the apothem times the perimeter, which is whatever 8 times 28 is. So you take 1/2 times 34 times the perimeter, because the area of a regular polygon is 1/2 the apothem times the perimeter. So what's 17 times 8 times 28? Some big number in the thousands, I think.
3,808.
Thank you. All right, similar polygons. 15 to 18 is a 5 to 6 ratio. So the ratio of the perimeters is 5 to 6. The ratio of the areas, you square the scale factor, which is 25 to 36. You just square the numbers. These are in a ratio of 6 to 5. So if we're talking about the areas, we must square them, 36 and 25. So if the larger one is 115, the smaller one is x. If we cross multiply, okay, if we cross multiply, and you take 25 times 115 divided by 36, it's somewhere around 80, isn't it?
80.
Area of a triangle or no, this is circumference of a circle. Why did I say triangle? Circumference of a circle equals 2 pi r. So you take 2 times pi times 10, or 20 pi, because they want it in terms of pi. Make sure you read the directions on how to answer them. Arc length. Well, if this is 60 degrees, this is 120 degrees. So arc length is the central angle, 120 divided by 360, times 2 pi r, and the radius is 30. Because if the diameter is 60, the radius is 30. So this is 20 pi. Sector area is the central angle divided by 360 times pi r squared. So this is 1/9 times pi times 81, which is 9 pi. All right, 22 centimeters is the diameter. We need the radius. So it's pi r squared. Radius is 11. So 11 squared is 121. So it's 121 pi. QR, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. QR is 6. The whole distance is 12. 6 over 12 is 1/2. From 3 to 5 is 1, 2. The whole distance is 10. 2 over 10 is 1/5. What shape is this if you take a cross section of that? Two circles shaped like that is called a donut. Bet you didn't know there's an official geometry shape called a donut, but there is. All right, surface area of a prism. Okay, now we're to the next chapter. Chapter whatever it is, 12, I think. Surface area of a prism is the perimeter of the base times the height plus 2 times the area of the bases. Perimeter of the base is 28. The height is 7. The area of the bases is 33. So 28 times 7 is like 196. No, is it that much? Could be, yeah. And this is 66. So 262. Surface area of a cylinder. Again, make sure you have your note cards because those will come in handy. Because it's 2 pi r h plus 2 pi r squared. So it's 2 pi 4 3 plus 2 pi 4 squared. So it's 24 pi plus 32 pi. And so that's 76 pi. Lateral area of a cone. Lateral area is pi RL. What's L? Well, that's a slant height. Something we don't have in this cone right now. To find the slant height, this is a Pythagorean theorem where this is 2, this is 7. So L squared equals 2 squared plus 7 squared. So L squared equals 4 plus 49. L squared equals 53. So L equals the square root of 53. So we take pi times 2 times the square root of 53. You put those all into your calculator and you multiply them out. And what do you get? Somebody. Pi times 2 times the square root of 53. To the nearest whole number. All right. Surface area of a pyramid is 1/2 the perimeter of the base times the slant height plus the area of the base. So it's 1/2 of 18 times 4, because there's 4 sides. They're each 18. Slant height is 15, plus the area of the base is 18 times 18. This is 324. This is 540, I think. So 864. That's just from my head, so I'm just guessing there. Okay, volume of a rectangular solid is the area of the base times the height. So it's 6 times 2 times 3, or 36. Volume of this is pi r squared h, the area of the base times the height. Pi, the radius is 6 squared times the height of 1, which is 36 pi. Then on your calculator, if you take 36 times pi, it's 113, 114, somewhere in there. 113.1. Okay, this cone. Volume of a cone is 1/3 the area of the base, pi r squared, or pi 2 squared, times the height, which is 7. So 4 times, so it's 28 divided by 3 times pi. And that has to be a little bigger than 28. 28 times pi divided by 3. What do we get? 29.3. Sounds good to me. Volume of a pyramid is 1/3 the area of the base times the height. So it's 1/3 the area of the base. It's 8 by 8, or 64. The height is 8. So 8 times 64 is some big number. And divide that by 3. So 1/3 of 64 times 8. What do we get? 1/3 of 64 times 8. I can go with that. A sphere has a diameter of 8. What's the surface area? Surface area of a sphere is 4 pi r squared. So it's 4 times pi times 4 squared. 4 times 4 is 16 times 4 is 64. So 64 pi. Oh, yeah, 64 pi. The volume of this is 4/3 pi r cubed. So it's 4/3 times pi times 8 cubed. So it's 8 times 8 times 8 times 4, which is what, 2048 over 3 times pi. If we do the math, what do we get? $2048 divided by 3 times pi. Should be 2,000 and something.
2,145.
Close enough.
If anybody has detention tonight, please report to the high school office after the bell rings.
Okay, volumes. If you're trying to get to the scale factor, you take the cube root. How do you take the cube root on your calculator? You push second, then you push it looks something like this. Maybe the X and the Y are backwards, but something like that. Oh, you push 3, and then second, and then that button, and then 27, and then equals, and it should give you 3, because 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. Do the same thing for 64. 3 hit that button, 64 equals, because you're taking the cube root, and you get 4. All right, similar solids, a 4:3 ratio. The ratio of the surface areas, ratio of the areas, you square them both, 16 and 9. Volumes, you cube them both, 64 and 27. Perimeter of this polygon, 8, 8, 4, 4, 7, 7, 13, 13. Okay? Then you add these up. So you take 26 plus 16 plus 14 plus, 8. Forgot the 8 there. So if we add them up, 24, so that's 64. All right. If these are the same distance away, that means these are the same length as each other. So if this is 9, this is 9. So that makes this whole thing 18. So that makes this 18. If this is 56, 56 is half of this, which makes this 112. Opposites are supplementary. Supplementary means they add up to 180. So if that's 97, C is 83. If this is 115, 180 minus 115 is what, 65? Then I'm going to get rid of this. We're going to go here. This is 230 because it's twice. This arc is 230 because it's twice the angle. If this part is 93, what's left is 137 for A. Now if we erase this part, and we go with these to figure out what B is, we know C is 83, so this arc is 166. 166 minus 37 is what, 29? So this is 29. So 135 minus 45 is 90. Half of 90 is 45. A circle, if the center is 6, 1, you take x minus 6 and x minus 1, or y minus 1. There's only one choice that says that, because it's always the opposites when you do the formula, and the radius, you square it. So if we're doing the opposites, the center is -5 from this one, -1 from that one, and the radius is the square root of that, which is 2. So -5, -1 is right there, radius of 2. Circle looks like that. There you go. That is what is on your final.